hogyha valaki fog fordítani, akkor hátul legyenek elő. Okay. Let's see. There are microphones on.
Yes, Hare Krishna. Guru Maharaj.
I was on another conference and I couldn't get into that. When I clicked on whatever Varshana gave me, then that word. So, I don't know whether what number I got was this number, and I couldn't connect on that.
Okay, I'll check that for next time.
Okay. Others can't turn on their videos.
We can.
I don't know. Tina Kumari and Dakshina and Fatima Hutchins and Night Mystery.
Yeah, my volume's pretty.
Yeah, Guru Maharaj, I think your internet is a little weak. The picture and sound is breaking up a little bit.
That's possible. And the best thing is, except for those people who are speaking, put on your mute. Well,
Guru Maharaj, I sent names of 3 devotees who have questions. Devotees, turn on their videos, please.
Whether that's any better.
Yeah, that's better.
Is it mine? It shouldn't be my connection.
Yeah, this is much better now.
It is. Okay. Okay, we're just here in the temple room, and it's been raining all day long, but now finally the sun came out. It went down. It was really super hot yesterday, and then overnight it really cooled off. So what should we talk about?
Guru Maharaj, there's Gopal Roy Prabhu has a question, Ramananda Prabhu has a question, Janava Priya has a question.
Okay, are they going to ask the question, or is someone asking the question for everyone?
No, they'll ask. They'll ask. So,
okay.
Who wants to go first?
Hi, Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. Of course, Prabhupada. My question is that some devotees...
Your accent over here. They didn't hear people talking English like you.
That some devotees are saying that in today's society, some of the books that Prabhupada wrote, like Krishna book and Srimad Bhagavatam, someone said that they're very much, written for people who already have faith already have Shraddha. And some devotees are saying that when we meet people initially, then we should give them some other books that they might find more relatable. And then when they have some faith, then we give them Prabhupada's books. This is one opinion. I was wondering what...
Well, the basic principle is not right, because none of us had faith and we're all here. And that didn't really change over the last 50 years. Faithless people come in contact with Prabhupada's books and they become devotees. And otherwise, devotees wouldn't be here to complain. So that part of that's not a good way to phrase the question. Can there be books that will facilitate people even taking maybe quicker to Srila Prabhupada's books? Prabhupada wanted all kinds of books written, but it shouldn't be at the cost of distributing Prabhupada's books. So the only way that you really do that nicely is if you distribute it, if it's a package. It's part of, you're selling Prabhupada's book, and this goes along with Prabhupada's book. But distribution of Prabhupada's books shouldn't decrease. And in one sense, people are much more open nowadays than we were. Everyone's heard about Krishna, everyone hears about Kirtan, everyone knows about yoga. It's become mainstream. Yesterday was International Yoga Day. So, and Indian culture is really attractive to everybody. So even if there are no such books, then Prabhupada's books also make faith. They create faith. So, but there's no harm in having other books. But the beginning part is not the right way of putting it. It becomes, it's not true, because it didn't happen with us. And nothing's really changed since then. But the other part is that, yeah, there can always be other books, but it should be at the cost of distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. Anything more on that one?
No, I think that's very clear.
I mean,
Just
I don't know if the people who sell Prabhupada's books say things like that.
He was a senior book distributor. What he was saying was that, you have the Jehovah's Witnesses hand out these pamphlets with these issues that people are, current issues in today's society that people can relate to. And then maybe once that gets them, once that appeals to them a little bit, then they're ready to hear about, Krishna and God and these other things.
It shouldn't be at the cost of Prabhupada's books. It's a reasonable argument, and there's no harm in other literature being there, perhaps more introductory books, but there's a transcendental element to distributing Srila Prabhupada's books that's not necessarily automatically visible, and that we should appreciate, because Krishna is in everybody's heart. So if Krishna just tells somebody, and if Krishna inspires their faith, then it'll happen, and ultimately that's where the faith comes from. Ridyantosto Badrani, that faith is coming from within. And it's coming in reciprocation to what people have, and also the quality of association that people will be getting. That's why, in one sense, how you sell the books is very important, because you're not just giving people books, you're also giving them the faith to read the book. And if someone's very expert, then he'll be able to relate to that. Distributor, then they'll be able to distribute the book in such a way that people have enough inquisitiveness and enough faith that yes, I want to read this. That's why devotees need to be careful not to turn people off when they're selling books. Something else about that?
No, that seems very clear. Yeah, no, thank you very much. That was.
People get the faith. The quality of the faith that people get will depend upon the quality of association that they get. And the quality of faith that they will get from reading Srila Prabhupada's books is very high grade quality, because they're associating with Srila Prabhupada. Oh, my video is off. I don't know why. And the grade of quality or the grade of faith that devotees will get from other books will vary according to the faith of the author. So that transcendental sound vibration will come across to varying degrees.
Because one of the arguments was, well, people are generally much, no one reads anymore. People are less, more degraded now than they were in the 70s or 60s. So when confronted with a big book, then they're less likely to.
So as far as I know, that's not true. In fact, the wave of e-books is on the decline, and even with e-books, the amount of books that people purchase never decreased, but it stayed the same. And after people have those books, they realize that there's nothing like having a real book in your hand, different than having this electronic thing. And it may be. That's why we also do other media. We're on internet, and we try to preach in different ways. But our business is not to follow culture, but to make culture. So it's a cultural revolution. If people stop reading, then we want to get them to start reading again. So we say, book, don't be lazy, don't be a brainless nerd sitting behind the computer all the time. Take time and read this book. Otherwise, you'll just become completely brainwashed. So we need to establish the culture. We're here to bring a culture to people, not just sort of blend in. And we want to bring about a cultural change. People are dressing in all kinds of outlandish ways. We're here to show them how to dress and how to eat and how to do everything else. So it's a cultural revolution, and that cultural revolution is based on hearing and reading transcendental literature. So we shouldn't be excessively concerned about temporary waves in contemporary society, what people are doing today, and so on. And we've immediately got to adjust very basic principles of what we do, but rather we need to encourage people and teach people, starting with our own devotees, that they need to be reading and studying. Because if they want prema, they have to read Srimad Bhagavatam. And devotees who read a lot and study a lot, they know the magic of transcendental literature. So, but it's not really true that people are not necessarily reading. There may be a certain class of people that don't read, but people are getting more educated than ever before. They're not doing it by just looking at a blackboard in a classroom. They're having to read a lot of books, lots of books. Yeah, so we're bringing about what Srila Prabhupada wanted was a cultural revolution, and therefore, and otherwise, what we're saying may apply to books. It may apply to so many other things. It will apply to the kind of food that we eat and the type of dress we wear and how we look and so many other things. So we're not here just like today at lunch. I was talking to devotees. We're not here to learn how to eat. Prabhupada said, I didn't come here to learn how to eat with a knife and fork and spoon. I came people to teach them how to eat with their hands. Aborigines eat with knife and forks. And human beings eat with their hands. And that's the culture that we're there to inculcate. And we eat on the floor. We don't eat at tables, preferably, and so on. And we read books. Something else on that, or do we move on to the next one?
Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj.
Otherwise, if people don't read books, how are they going to access the absolute truth? Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. How do you get to it? And you can chant Hare Krishna, but you won't really be able to upgrade your chanting without reading. Even when devotees read a lot and chant a lot, they still got trouble upgrading their Krishna consciousness. We're still tied down in bad habits. Something else? Someone, when you all have your microphones off, then it's really good. Background noise doesn't get through. Okay, someone else?
Ramananda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
So a few weeks ago, when we were in New Vrajadam, you were giving a class and you were speaking about this principle that the 8 material elements that Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita, they cover the material universe. And earth, water, fire, air, and ether, I can understand how those can exist separate from the living entity. But mind, intelligence, and false ego, I can't understand how those 3 elements can cover the universe and be an element which is separate from the living entity themselves?
Well, it may be more difficult to conceive of. Can you hear from here?
Yeah, the sound's faint, but I can hear.
Oh, it's better like this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
much better, thank you.
Anyway, that's because it's echoey in here. We're in a temple room. Yeah, it's as the subtler it gets, the more difficult it becomes to understand. And maybe we can, maybe we can't. Important thing is that we accept it. There is such a collective collectivity of mind and ego and intelligence. They're also substances. You don't have any difficulty in conceiving that your body is made of, anyway, more or less water, and therefore part of that water makes up your body, and that becomes your unique part. That unique water becomes your unique body. So similarly, there's such a thing as mind, and the particular aspect of mind is your mind. But there's also a totality of all of these elements, and they exist not only in the coverings, but the whole process of creation takes place like that. They manifest in the Mahatattva, and they're there in subtle form in Pradhan. So they're there, and we have a mind because we get a benefit of that particular mind. The difference between our mind, the mind that we have, and remember that this material mind is simply an instrument that's being used by the soul. It comes with us through different lives. Whereas the body, every body, you have to give it up and get another body. But the subtle body, mind, intelligence, false ego, that you take from one life to another, as long as you're in the material world. And when you leave the material world, then, and this description's always there. It's there in Bhagavatam, different people. For instance, Dhritarashtra comes to mind as one. And then there are others, that they merge the totality. They merge all of the elements into the totality of the elements. They merge the false ego into the totality of the false ego. They merge the mind into the totality of the mind. They merge intelligence into the totality of the intelligence. That's how the process of yogic liberation takes place, is that ultimately you have to give up all of these different material elements to where you got them from. And Dhritarashtra is one, is described in detail. I'm trying to think of who else there is, but there are others. Devotees should be able to remember where that same process is described. It may be Bhishma Dev. No, not Bhishma Dev. So that's a standard process. Something else on
That thank you, Guru. There was another question. It wasn't related to that, but it was a question about Srila Prabhupada. He describes how when we're chanting the Maha Mantra, then Rama can refer to either Balaram or Lord Ram, although generally we meditate upon Krishna. And when we're chanting the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, we're meditating on Radha and Krishna. I'm wondering if, can Hare also refer to Subhadra Devi, and therefore by chanting the Maha Mantra we can meditate on Jagannath, Baladev and Subhadra, and for those in our line, is it bona fide to do so, or should we always meditate on Radha and Krishna?
Hare, Subhadra. Well, not directly, no. I mean, ultimately, all energies, all Shaktis come from Srimati Radharani. But, since direct connection, then and I've never heard that said, and I think it's something that we should practice. And meditation should be on what Balaram, Jagannath, Subhadra, and meditate on Radhe Shyam, which is Radhe Shyam and Radha Krishna's pastimes. So ultimately, the idea is to get people to chant Hare Krishna, and they may meditate on these different acceptable forms, and Hare can refer to Hari or Krishna, and does, but we shouldn't make anything up.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
And then
Janava Priya.
In the Bhagavad Gita, in the 18th chapter, Krishna says that somebody who does his prescribed duty without attachment, out of duty, then he's a renouncer in the mode of goodness. And a few verses later, he says that for such a renouncer, there is no reaction. So I was wondering whether this no reaction applies to somebody who renounces or works in the mode of goodness, or only for those who also offer the fruits of their work to Krishna, who work in Krishna consciousness or who work in transcendence.
well, the Jnanis, yogis, if they come to that platform of goodness, and they're engaged in some form of bhakti, although that may not necessarily be their goal, they can free themselves from all other karmic reactions, although the karmic reactions that are due at present generally only by devotional service. And here is, so Prithu Maharaj says, Yatpada Pankaja Palasa Vilasa Bhaktya Karma Shayam Gratitam Udgratiyanti Shanta Tadvam Nariktamatayo Yatayo Pirudha Shroto Ganastadaram Bhajabashudevam. The devotees who are always engaged in the service of the toes of the lotus feet of the Lord can very easily overcome the hard-knotted desires for fruit of action, because this is very difficult for the non-devotees, the jnanis and yogis, although trying to stop the waves of sense gratification cannot do so. Therefore, you are advised to engage in devotional service of Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. So, unless people are engaged in devotional service to some degree, then it won't be possible. And there are different degrees. Just like, for instance, there is karma mishra bhakti, which means that your bhakti is mixed or motivated with fruitive action. And there is bhakti mishra karma, which means that your karma, karmic activities is mixed to a certain degree with bhakti. And similarly, there is also bhakti mishra yoga and bhakti mishra gyan. So as long as that bhakti is there, then it'll work at least according to the strength of that devotional activity. But generally speaking, it will really all karmic reaction, especially prarabdha karma. In other words, that what we see right now, that can only neutralize by devotional service.
So is it the correct understanding that just the mode of goodness in itself doesn't free one from reactions, only bhakti is added to it?
Yeah. It's even questionable whether someone can be in the mode of goodness with some connection with bhakti.
Uh-huh.
So there has to be some devotional activity. Something else? What about the kids, the boys?
You got a question? You got any questions? They're all too shy.
That's strange.
They're pretending to be shy.
Okay, what's next?
Daniel Vida.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. My question is on the meaning of samskar. I've been trying to understand this word, and I found that the meaning of samskar is purificatory process. But I've also heard the word samskar be described as impressions in the mind from experiences that we have. And when I was looking it up, there was one translation that was samskar meant remnants. So, and that's the closest thing that I've seen where it may allude to remnants of experience and impression. So I was wondering where there is this understanding of samskara meaning impression, like grooves, from experiences, grooves are made in the mind, which then directs one's consciousness and behaviors and thoughts and.
Yes, so it means different things. I mean, the word, there's one thing is the word, and the other one is the samskars, the activities. So it depends which one you're talking about. Just like the word maya means illusion, it also means mercy. It means many things. Depends what's the context that it's being used in. So if you're talking about the samskar activities, they are material purificatory activities. And they're meant to actually leave an impression also. And they leave just like you've got vivaha yagya, marriage. So it's a purificatory activity. It's performed in a way as to actually purify bride, groom, and everyone involved. And it's also meant to give a deep impression on them. That's what the whole ceremony is all about. The ceremony is all about making an impression on them, which is to follow the vows of marriage, not to get divorced, and everything that marriage is about. So both of those things are there when you're talking about samskar ceremony. But in principle, the ceremony means a purificatory rite. And there are so many purificatory rites. Just like the first day when children first go to school. So it's also a purificatory activity, probably more of an impression at that stage than a purificatory activity. Because making a real impression on the children. This is something really serious happening and taking place, and so they now we're going to schools, so they really take it very seriously, and it really has a real impression on them. The idea is that they should now behave themselves and listen and take this education very seriously. And then, of course, there may be different things like yagyas and sacrifice and mantras that go along with that, which is meant to make a auspicious atmosphere and to invoke a bright type of consciousness in the child. And so there's all these 18 different samskars that more or less people should go through. They make for Prabhupada. Prabhupada talks about when he remembered when his mother was pregnant, and that at different stages of the pregnancy there would be different ceremonies, and he remembered that, I don't know in what month, at some particular month, then Brahmins would come and chant mantras, and everyone would get people would come, and there would be big prasadam distribution, and the mother would receive new cloth and jewelry like that. So here was Prabhupada 75 years down the road, and he was expressing what a strong impression that made on him when he was just like 5 years old. Because if you want to establish a culture, you have to impress the culture in people's minds so that it's something that they're also going to do down the line. And without that type of samskara, then then it's not civilization, not it's animal society. So, and that's how you invoke good material circumstances, and especially when it's done with things like chanting Hare Krishna and presence of Vaishnavas and getting Vaishnavas' blessings and hearing Shastra, then it becomes a spiritual event. So again, it's part of a culture. We're meant to be introducing this culture.
So can the word samskara be alternatively understood as just impressions, or is it material purificatory?
If you look up Sanskrit dictionary, it probably means 10 different things. Question of whether you're talking about what a word means.
Ask the question. Take that camera. Sit there. Sit there. Sit right there.
Whoever's got their microphone off needs to turn it off. Who's got their microphone on? Yeah. So are you just looking for what the word means, or are you looking for what that actual ceremony is about?
I was actually looking for what the word means in terms of impressions.
Anyway, it means impressions also.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Guru.
Okay, anyone else?
Rohini Nandan Prabhu.
Who?
Rohini Nandan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at this camera. I've heard many times that most people in modern society are going down after this life because of so many sinful activities which we are all performing. I've read this verse, which is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, chapter 11, verse 31. I'll just read the, small fractions of it. So it goes like this. The conduct of different sections of people according to their material modes of nature is auspicious both in this life and after death. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, the Antyajas, the men of the lower classes, are accustomed to stealing, drinking, and illicit sex, but that is not considered sinful. And later on, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport how he compares them to like wild animals like tigers, that for them is not considered sinful to eat another animal. So I was wondering, what's the position of people in modern society today?
Well, when you have people who are outcast, in other words, that they don't have any social rights, because that's part of a varnashram system. Those people, they're completely outcast. They have no rights, even rights of a shudra. Then the benefits that they get from more or less they're living in the jungle. So they're like Aboriginal type people. And they may be accustomed to different types of sinful activities in terms of what is expected of them. Then there's no sinful reaction. In other words, since they're living more or less lives like animals, so therefore animals also do these things, and there's no sinful reaction on their part. That doesn't mean that they aren't conditioned by those activities or go further down by performing those activities. And as a result of that, they're still falling further down. And that's sinful activity in terms of sinful activity breaking the codes of Dharma or Varnashram. There may still be different reactions that they get in terms of what's expected of someone in a human body. But yeah, I'm aware of that. Prabhupada doesn't really elaborate too much further. I'd be interested to see what the acharyas say. But there are certain classes of people or certain circumstances where people don't get punished or they don't have sinful reaction for certain things. It's just like children. Children below a certain age are absolved of any kind of karmic reaction. That doesn't necessarily mean that their conduct doesn't condition them. It's like Vena. Vena was very sinful as a child. He used to kill so many other kids. From a karmic point of view, up until a certain time, he may have not been responsible for that. But that didn't mean that developing that habit didn't have consequences for him. And then as far as people in today's society, I think in today's society, more or less everything's so upside down that neither you have no varnashram system, and you can't even say that people fall into the category of outcasts. Everyone is just very, very fallen. But they're certainly responsible for activities because they're expecting rights that are actually the prerogative of higher orders of society. So these people are forest dwellers. Modern people are not forest dwellers. They want education. They want to become rich. They want all kinds of luxuries and so on. So you can't have the assets of varnas and ashramas without getting without providing the liabilities or the conduct that goes along with them. And if you don't follow that conduct, then you're going to be sinful. On the other hand, there may be people in different parts of the world who really live under aboriginal circumstances and don't expect any other type of. Just like I remember reading this article on a man who was who lived who's an Australian Aborigine. They lived out in the forest. Said not forest, excuse me. They were living out there in the desert, and so they were all naked. No one wore clothes, but they had their traditions, and they ate. They would eat. What are those type of big bugs that? Anyway, they would eat anything that moved, practically speaking. And but he said that they still had their traditions. He said every woman treated every child just as if it was their own child. He says I had many mothers. It was a very good thing. And then when the British or the Australians, the so-called civilized people, came and made them dress. And of course, they became just like, for instance, the American Indians in the United States and in Canada. As soon as they contacted Western civilization, they just like lost it. They're all like drunks, just because alcohol has such an extraordinary effect on them. So, but they didn't want that type of lifestyle. They didn't like it. They wanted to be who they were, but they were brainwashed to be someone else by the so-called civilized class, who are actually no better than them, except the fact that they want the prerogatives of civilization as well. But then if you want that, then you have to take the sinful reaction that comes along with it. Okay, few more minutes. Anything else on that?
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
I'm just looking at the time. We are on Friday, the 22nd, and now getting into longer days. Yeah, 2 weeks from now, I'm in Bucharest, so that's no good. And on the 4th, I already speak with Russian devotees. Well, it could be the next week, either the 11th or 12th, something like that. And Nimai, did you check on this Zoom code that I sent you? Was that right?
Yeah, that was the first Zoom conference code. So I think it was just a confusion, perhaps. It was the first code, not today.
You got to send me another one then.
Yeah, I'll send you the latest one for the next one.
I just pulled it from one to the other.
Yeah, I can send a calendar invite so it's in your calendar.
And then, okay, so what day? 11th or 12th?
That's a weekday, right, Guru?
Yep, it's Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah. That weekend I'm in the UK, so there's no point. And next weekend is Buchu after that, so that's not going to work. Anyway, it's night time. Is that a good time for anybody or everybody?
11th is good.
11th.
Yeah. 11th is good as well.
Okay, same time, 6:30. That's 7:30 my time. Okay. And that's 7:30. Okay, anyone have any last question? Any topic?
Brinda had a question and Gorkishore Prabhu had a question.
Okay, we may only get to Brinda's question. Let's see what it is.
Hi, Krishna Guru. Just on the point of cultural, presenting the culture, we hear from time to time that people don't mind the philosophy of prasadam, kirtan, but the sari and dhoti bit, that's not for them, or they find it or sometimes they may find the devotees dressed that way unapproachable or like that. So I was just wondering, in these kind of bridge preaching programs, then should be like long skirts and sharp saris, and then just the point when they're kind of purified with, just to get them to be purified and not considered as strange or something like that. Is that okay?
Anyway, it depends what kind of program you're talking about. You may do a program where you're not dressed in devotional clothes, but if you're doing a Hare Krishna program, then you're going as a Hare Krishna. That's what people expect. And if you're doing something else, then it maybe, it just depends. Initially, it's not a problem whether people are initially dressed like that, but Hare Krishnas shouldn't be dressed like that. When they're looking for Hare Krishnas, coming to a Hare Krishna temple, or you're going out on a festival, or you're doing Rath Yatra, then you should, people expect you to look like a Hare Krishna. They're not going to a Hare Krishna festival to look at people who look at that like them. Where are you? Is that clear or?
She shrunk her small head.
Yeah. So it just depends.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And what was the last question?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. My question was that when Lord Chaitanya came to the planet, did he like meditate upon himself?
He meditated on Krishna.
Okay.
And he didn't think that he was Krishna. He was thinking that he's a devotee of Krishna. So he's meditating on Krishna. Just like we're also meditating on Krishna. So that's what it means. Lord Chaitanya comes, and he comes in the mood of Radharani, and he comes in the mood and with the complexion of Srimati Radharani, which means that just like Radharani meditates on Krishna, so that's how Lord Chaitanya was also meditating on Krishna. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Are you going to meditate on Krishna too?
Yes.
All right. So like you're meditating on Krishna, that's how he's also meditating on Krishna. And then Lord Chaitanya would also meditate on devotees. Because the way to get to Krishna is through Krishna's devotees. Hare Krishna. Okay, I can see that,
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, so we'll, it seems like we'll talk on the 11th, and then I'll be there on the 13th for that event. Is it being billed as a big event?
Damodar, is it a big event?
Is Damodar on online?
Yes, but not on video.
Oh.
Is it a big event?
Yes.
Hi, Krishna Guru Maharaj. Nada speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's becoming a big event.
Are you cooking?
No, we're sitting.
No,
well, I want to cook, but they won't let me.
Oh, who's cooking?
Krishna, Puna, and team, and all the devotees are helping.
Uh-huh.
We've got yourself present, and Agni Dev Prabhu's coming. Rasamrita Maharaj. A lot of Prabhupada disciples will be there.
Sure.
So it's a big event.
Well, sounds like a real deal.
We're looking forward to your presence as well. Graceful wedding.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Yeah, now at least when people ask me, well, I thought you didn't go to weddings. I said, I do when people are giving it to Seva at the wedding. I don't want to sound mercenary, but okay, sounds good. So then we'll be in touch then. We're going to go because we're an hour ahead of you. Hare Krishna, glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Bo, Hare Krishna.